So we're back in the studio. Sounds like I'm in a funeral home right now.
Yeah, because we're not laughing.
Yeah, so our job is to make sure we get the most information that's out there to our community and all our constituents that's listening to the show as well as viewing the show. And so we have a special guest in the studio. And so I'm going to bounce it over to my co-host, Misty. And Misty, I'm going to let you introduce our guest.
All right. Well, I'm excited that we have Mercedes Price Harry in the studio, and she's an impressive lady, entrepreneur, business owner, has a beautiful family here locally. We'll find out a little bit more of that. And she's got a really interesting job. Well, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about she is the newly elected chairman of the Republican Party of Lee County, and she will not say this. And we're into all that. She got this job because she deserved it. I don't know if she's happy about that or not, but she is the first woman chairman in Southwest Florida history. So pretty cool.
Who knew?
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, you just
breaking the glass ceiling.
Yes, and you're breaking the good old boy network here in Lee County. Yeah, it's broken now. Yeah, it's good stuff. And you just got elected in December, and I know you've been working. So, tell us a little bit about yourself first, though. Let's find out more about you, Mercedes, because I've known you for years.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family and
sure.
So did she grow up in Kentucky?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
You say you've known her for years. I didn't know if y'all was in third grade
I met
together
Missy
or
when
not.
she moved over to the West Coast about 10 years ago. It was right at the end of my young Republican days.
Yeah.
It was kind of when I checked out of Republican politics for about 4 or 5 years. But so I tell everybody kind of the same things. I'm a military kid. My mother immigrated from Costa Rica in the early 70s and met my dad, who adopted me when I was about 6 or 8. But it was the only dad I know. It's from the time I was maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years. And born outside of Philadelphia and grew up on Camp Pendleton. And then in my early teens moved to eastern North Carolina and then eventually South Carolina. So I really I say dude and y'all in the same sentence. And I just always talk about how I had a mother who really loved America and was deeply passionate about America, which is why she never taught us Spanish. So that's something that people think they're going to get with me is that I, can translate, and I just can't. I'm just a regular American like everybody else, and that's how she wanted us to grow up because she loved the country. She would have never left her country if she wanted to raise us Costa Rican. And my father is just, a boy from Kansas who joined the military at 18 and ended up meeting my mother. So anyhow, California and the Southeast is where we grew up, and we weren't very patriotic. Well, we were patriotic, but we weren't political. And so I am a Gen Xer, and I grew up, I'm the MTV generation, and so it was boxers or briefs, right? Like he was the cool guy, and that was kind of what you did. You just registered Democrat or you voted Democrat. Now, I remember getting the idea that both parties were bad, so I always was a registered independent. So I registered independent at the age of 18, and that's what I was until I was 32 when I registered Republican, and that was in 2008 or 9 when Barack Obama came on the scene. So I was very non-political. I had no idea what was going on in the world. I think about how I was at a business conference when the Iraq War started and how everyone kind of made a big deal out of it, and I just didn't care and had no idea, just totally apathetic. And then, as I noted, Barack Obama came onto the scene, and I was actually really excited about that. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a military kid. For us, it wasn't so much about black and white. It was more about enlisted and officer. And so I wasn't surprised at all that we were able to nominate a black man for president. So I immediately delved into his history because I wanted to learn more. I was so excited about this prospect of this guy being our president because I obviously was paying attention after the primary because everybody talked about it.
Yeah.
And that's when, the internet had kind of just, or social media had just sort of taken steam and people were vlogging or blogging back then. So, 2008, I had no kids and I was just working, and every weekend I would sit in the office and my husband and I would just be on the internet and having wine on the lanai and talking. And he had always been a Republican but never imposed any of his opinions on me, which I kind of wish he had. Because I voted for John Kerry and he voted for Bush, which I don't know which one is worse in retrospect. But And I started to go down these crazy rabbit holes, and I started to learn about all kinds of things, like Frank Marshall Davis, who was Barack Obama's mentor, a legitimate communist, right, who was on the FBI list. And then I started to learn about his grandparents and his father and his associations and Bernadine Dorn and anyhow, and then I started going down these rabbit holes of the Cloward and Piven strategy, which is to overwhelm and destroy the system and then to remake it in your own ideological image. So I just became this absolute crazy person because I loved America.
You've never been a crazy person.
Never, right, no. But I loved America, and I loved this incredible life that it had given me. And it just blew my mind that there were people out there that were speaking out against America. And so I just started to try and sound the alarms to everyone that I knew about what we were getting ourselves into. And of course, I was completely drowned out. I jumped into the whole, like, it's got to be McCain, right? If it's not Obama, it's got to be McCain. And I actually drove around with a McCain sticker on my car for a while. I know. But, you know, I think that that's how you start, right?
Yeah.
I remember,
Something.
Yeah, I met a
Some
guy,
precipice.
and he tried to give me hell years later about how, I remember you were a Sean Hannity fan. And, you know, at the beginning I was. I think at the beginning we all are, right? Like, if you're not a Democrat, then you're a Republican. So you kind of fall into that mainstream Republicanism. And then you try to go and find outlets that say that they have the same value system that you do. So, you know, I went down the whole, I listened to Sean Hannity and I watched Fox News, and then you become more, hopefully, you become more informed if you want to go deeper, which is something I tend to do. I tend to, you know, go behind the scenes on things that I have a vested interest in. And I feel like most people keep it surface level because they don't have the time, energy, or interest. And so then I started to follow the Ron Paul revolution. And that was more in 2011. I was a little late to the game. So in 2011, a friend of mine, Vince Perfetto, introduced me to Ron Paul. And that completely changed my perspective on politics. And that was when I began to understand the philosophical basis for why I was a Republican and the philosophical basis for why I was very libertarian and conservative. And that is really what drew me more toward libertarianism and allowed me an opportunity to explain why small government was better.
I think a lot of us that were Republicans started leaning libertarian. For me, it was Mitt Romney. It was like, is that the best we could do as a party?
That was 2012. That was when
That
Ron
was about
Paul.
the
It was just
time.
Ron Paul and Mitt Romney. He made it to the very end.
Yeah. Before we go too much deeper on your political side,
Yeah.
we want to find a few more things out about.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I turned it into.
Oh no, you're good. No, you're
I
good.
got a husband and
This
some
is
kids in there somewhere, right?
no. This is your platform. This is your pulpit outside the pastor's pulpit.
Yeah, I
So-
appreciate it. So,
So-
I ended up in the Southeast, right? And then I went to college at Georgia Southern because I put myself through school, and it was actually more expensive to go to college in the state of South Carolina than it was to go out of state at a Georgia college.
Wow, who was your congressman?
Yeah. So a girlfriend of mine actually had no interest in college. I barely made it through 10th and 12th grade. And my parents had no interest in my education. My mom was working 2 jobs all the time as a waitress or, you know, doing different things, delivering pizzas, whatever. My dad was an officer in the Marine Corps, but they had a lot of kids. And so I stayed at home, and I worked at a chocolate store for the first year making minimum wage. And the girl that worked with me was a year younger. And she was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to work here forever? She's like, come to college with me. I need a roommate. So I was like, oh, okay. So I moved in with her.
Oh, wow.
I did not get into Georgia Southern because I barely graduated 12th grade. And I went to the local community college. I did that for about a year and a half. And that's where I actually met my husband.
In Georgia?
In Georgia.
Okay, in
Yep.
Georgia.
I went to, oh my gosh, how am I forgetting what it was called? It was a little 2-year school, like outside of Swainsboro, Georgia. And so at the time, my husband, who grew up very different than me, he was a spoiled brat, and he had flunked out of college, and he had gotten kicked out. And his mom and dad had cut him off completely, took away the credit card. He had a credit card. And so he went to the 2-year school with me. And we were carpooling.
Oh wow, he got humble.
Yeah, he really did. His parents are great people. So as soon as he didn't, pull his end of the bargain. They yanked everything, but he didn't want to go home. So he found a way to go to the 2-year school. And we also worked the same place together. I was a waitress. He was a delivery guy. So we became very close. And we just dated and had fun. And I'll never forget one of my good friends after 3 years was like, when are y'all going to get engaged? And I thought, why would we get engaged? Like, we're just having fun. We just started dating.
Everything's cool right now.
Yeah, we just started dating. But we'd actually been together for 3 years. So we got engaged at 6 years, got married at 7 years.
Wow.
Didn't have kids for 7 more years. So we were together for a really long time. And he's the complete opposite of me. Doesn't talk near as much. Super quiet and just very even keel, whereas I'm like loud and reactive sometimes. And so we're definitely the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And he pulls me down a little and I pull him up a little. And so we make a great combination. Ended up with 2 kids. I was a drug rep for a while. I did that for about 8 or 9 years, and then ended up with 2 children.
A legal drug rep.
I was a legal drug rep. I was a pharmaceutical
legal drug
I was in pharmaceutical sales. Now everyone's gonna find out I'm a lobbyist.
Attention, law enforcement. She was a legal drug dealer.
I was a legal drug, yeah. So I sold insulin, which was a very cool industry to sell in.
Well, that's a hot topic now.
Yeah,
Insulin.
yeah.
We'll get into it. I promise.
Well, and don't even get me started on how everybody's like shooting themselves in the butt to lose weight, and I couldn't get anybody to shoot themselves in the butt just to control their diabetes. But nonetheless, I have 2 beautiful children. They're 10 and 14 now, and we've been in Cape Coral for 21 years, 22 years, 4th of July. And we only came here just to have fun. We were young, and we weren't even married at the time. We were like, let's just move to South Florida for a couple of years. And we never left. So
4th of July. Do you go to Red, White, and Boom? Do you do it?
I do. I love Red, White, and Boom.
I love Red, White,
White,
yeah,
and Boom.
yeah.
Ooh, that's like the biggest 4th of July event, probably one of the biggest in the state.
Yeah.
Really?
They literally
Cape
shut
Coral.
down the Cape Coral Parkway Bridge
Yeah.
Really?
for Red, White, and Boom.
It's
Wow.
awesome. They have bands, and I don't know that in the last year or two, I've been a little like weird with big crowds though. So the last few times we stayed in the back, whereas I used to go deep, right,
Yeah.
and go all the way in, and but Red,
I
White,
usually
and Boom,
have a
that's good one.
candidate there. I usually have
I'm
a
sure you
booth.
do,
I usually
yeah.
have a candidate there, but can usually get lost and run over to the VIP section and see what's going on there and
Yeah.
go down and listen to a band.
It's a
and
hot event.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot, like sweaty hot.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah. It's
Well,
really
and
hot.
don't forget it. You always get poured on around 3.
Yes.
Because every time I had a tent there, like during Young Republicans, we would just get poured on around 3, and then it would stop, and we could have our fireworks and move on.
Wow. Red, White, and Boom.
Big
Red,
event.
White, and
Big
Boom,
event.
baby.
Big event.
Okay. I look forward to being there.
Yeah. you'll like
Yeah.
it.
So let's dial you up just a little bit.
Sure.
Tell me, sometime I always talk about the big 3, and the big 3 for me is family, faith, and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a politician, so tell me a little bit about your journey into politics.
She's like,
she's not.
what?
Hey, I know nobody wants to be a politician, but you're a chair lady for the Lee County GOP, so you're a politician because you're representing people.
And you did get voted in.
And I did, yeah. That's true. I never
Yeah.
I like the
But-
way your mind thinks, Dewayne.
But if you tell me you was born to be a politician, I'm gonna kick you out of the studio.
Yeah,
She so wasn't.
no.
No.
I'm actually really bad at it, I think, because I don't have. I can be measured and respectful, but there are so many people I just want to drag in by the neck. So that's the non-politician part of me.
That's why I stopped coaching football. I would be choking kids.
Yeah, don't do that. You can't do that.
So if you don't want to grab some of these people by the neck, something's wrong because, we've talked about it, but I want to.
I mean, really? I mean, like, I thought, like, becoming a politician was about, like, becoming a senior pastor of a church. Everybody wants to be a senior pastor, right? No one, it's kind of like,
That's very political.
Everybody wants to be the pilot. Nobody wants to be a passenger. I get it. Don't everybody want to be the nail? Everybody want to be the hammer. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks so glamorous. I mean, I think leadership really attracts people, especially people who don't supposed to be leaders. They always want to be in power.
Right.
They're like, go sit down somewhere, go home. Like,
Yeah.
do your homework. Do a
Yeah.
little bit more research. Understand why we do what we do. We don't do what we do to be put on a pedestal, but we do what we do to serve people.
Yeah.
I
And the
said
people.
this yesterday to you. I think a good leader knows when to lead, but they also know when to follow.
That's right. Absolutely.
right.
That's where
That's
you
right.
start. So tell me a little bit about how long have you been in politics? What was your passion? What was your segue into politics?
Yeah, so it was definitely Barack Obama, Ron Paul revolution. It was the 2008 election, and from there it just sort of went into where I'm at now, which is with the congressman and who I met back in the Tea Party days, and then the chair thing really was not something I was trying to do. And
Yeah.
I had spent, I've been very vocal about this with everybody, that I had spent months trying to find someone to run because I don't want to be a politician, right? I'm very black and white.
Yeah.
I can be very brash, and I have very little patience for useless, meaningless stuff. So I knew that I felt that I wouldn't have the type of personality, and I've been pretty good so far, but nonetheless, yeah, I think that really my passion has just sort of been the activist part of it. And so it's been a very interesting thing to be in an elected official's office and then to become the chair of a big party, a big county party, because I have seen such a different way to do things, not being an activist, right? As an activist, I look back at my young Republican days and all the things that we did that I was passionate about, but did I move the needle? Right? Because I didn't want to bother with elections. I didn't want to bother with the smears and the candidates. It was so boring to me. I was all about the activism because it felt good. But what did it actually do for me? And when I look back, it didn't do, well, not for me. What did it do for the community, right?
Yeah.
Did I make change? And I don't think that I did. So my newfound passion in terms of politics is getting the activists to understand that hyperventilating about literally everything all the time and tearing down our elected officials because you're angry about one or two issues will get you literally nowhere. Nowhere. So we have to be more measured and skilled in the way that we approach people and understand that it's a long game. So right now that's my passion, just trying to get people to understand that this is a long game. We've got to find really good people, and we need to be collaborative with the people that we have now, because you cannot move the needle if they've shut the door in your face. And sometimes activists deserve to have the door shut in their face the way that they treat people. It's, you understand why.
No, absolutely. Before I bounce it back over to my co-host, Misty, one important thing you said, and I want to speak to the audience, to all the constituents who are listening or viewing, I totally agree with you. There's an old saying, where there's division, people are divided, and where people are divided, there's no strength. And you cannot push the envelope. You cannot push the needle if there's no strength. So for the people who are out there, I tell people all the time, you can complain. You can make excuse. But what are you willing to do? Are you willing to put your money, your effort, and your time to make things better?
Right. And then when you have a good solution, you've already expended your capital. Nobody wants to hear you.
Yeah.
Nobody.
You threw 500 punches, but you only landed one. I'm going to give it back to Misty on that one.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to, I mean, listen, I was all in for you when you decided to run. I'm glad you did, because I think you are already creating change. And obviously, how do you eat an elephant, right?
Yeah.
One bite at a time. So you're doing it, and it's no easy role. I think I forgot how difficult your role is as chairman.
Right.
You're
yeah, because you were the secretary.
I was the secretary for about 8 years.
Yeah,
on
that's
the board.
A long time. That's a long time.
And I'm going to tell you something. I got almost numb to it. I'd forgotten, I guess, because it's a thankless job. Mm-hmm. It is a thankless job. Nobody's walking up to you and saying thank you.
No, they're just criticizing you.
Nobody's walking up to you and saying, we're so grateful that you're putting forth all your free time.
Yeah.
On this, and but they're more or less walking up to you and saying, I have this issue and I want you to fix it right now.
Yeah.
And if you don't like my issue, you're a rhino, or whatever they're going to call you.
Yeah.
So
rhino.
I guess we hate that word. We hate that word. Yeah. We've already established that.
Yeah.
Basically, if you don't agree with me, you're a rhino.
Right.
So that's how some people think. And so I guess my question to you is, you ran a great campaign, and you ran it on unity and all the things that we need. Yeah. We are a divided party. It's not just here.
No.
It's all over.
Everywhere.
It's all over.
Yeah.
But how do you think we're going to be able to get to unity here?
Yeah. I think we can. Yeah. And here's how. We have to understand that the same 20 people that scream and yell and word vomit all over Facebook and criticize and tear down are the same 20 people that have been doing it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Are they loud? Are they blowing me up all the time? Are they just ugly? Yes. And so like you were just saying, I'm only 4 months in, and I'm becoming numb to it. It used to eat me up because I wanted so bad to grab him by the neck. That's
the mom in you.
Yeah.
I said.
That's right. But I think that we can, and it's about focusing on the other. And this is what I tell my board too, because the whole board gets attacked. I get it the most, but they get it too. And this board, we all ran. We don't want to be politicians, right? We don't have any interest in running for office in the future. So we're an anomaly to most people that are on REC boards. And so it's hard for us sometimes to deal with the level of criticism and the demands and the name calling and the division. But if we focus on the people, we won by a vast majority.
You did.
Okay.
It was a mandate.
Yeah. So people in the organization are done, and they don't have the patience for it. They don't have the tolerance for it. And so we have to keep our focus on those people. We are here for those people. Yeah. The 20 loudmouths that everybody in the entire community understands is, a loudmouth and has no credibility, despite what they may think. In the long run, they don't. Those people in the end are getting nowhere. And so they are always going to be there. Let's focus on the other 95% of us and what can we all do together. So it's all about just focusing and moving forward and allowing them to scream and yell. They're going to scream and yell, and learning how to manage them as we all move forward. And just if in the end, at the end of this 2-year term, we can show that we've gotten some really great people to run for office and elected some good people to be in Tallahassee and in the county and at the council level, and we were able to educate people that we are not your standard executive committee, that we can empower the people to understand that we are building a foundation for a beautiful America that we're not promised after Trump, then I would say that we're successful. So those are the things we need to focus on.
I love that. And I think that's incredible, and that's it gives us hope here, because honestly, there's no better time to represent the Republican Party.
Especially in Florida. This is what blows my mind is we are, I'm going to say it, the and listen, you can say what you want about the RPOF. Do we have some things we need to work on? Of course, again, we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. But there's no cooler Republican than a Florida Republican right now. Yeah. We are the Florida Republicans are the standard for the country right now.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes, let me be devil's advocate here for just a moment, okay? And I want you guys' input on this. Sometimes we're blessed to be a red state, right? Mm-hmm. And especially in Southwest Florida. But I've lived in other states where it appeared as the fight was against the Democrats. But when you got so many Republicans, sometimes the fight seems like it's against the Republicans.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But I'm still proud to be in Southwest
Florida. We eat our own. We do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's our nature, right? We're so independent-minded. We're so sovereign that we, and I don't mean that facetiously, but maybe a little bit. Yeah. But we are. We're all so individualistic is maybe the better word that I'm looking for. Yeah. And so it's our nature, I think, to not be the collective. But we are also very critical, and I think it's because we have very high standards.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think that's what we talked about earlier with the term that everybody hates is rhino. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if I'm aligned with the Constitution, I'm aligned with the amendments, then I'm not a rhino. And I told her earlier, I think it was George Washington, when I seek to please you, in your ideology, I disapprove my emotions, and my emotions are based on my core belief, which is our amendments in our Constitution. Mm-hmm. So how do I become a rhino? Yeah. So you got rhino Republican, you got conservative, Christian conservative, and you got far right. Yeah. And I'm like, if I'm not far right, then, and I think we're at a very critical time. But talk to me just a little bit about, the months that you have been the chair lady. What does that look like for you? And then I'm going to throw it back to Misty because, let me tell you something. Your name is hot and it's singing, but I don't think it's singing as loud as some of the Lee County corruption that's going on. But we won't deep dive off into that when I get up with Misty.
Yeah, yeah, Missy knows. Her hair is full of secrets. But so we started with the transition. So December was a rough month because this last year, 2024, both of the holidays landed in the middle of the week. So those 2 weeks were like a near wash. So we spent the first 10 days or so, 20 days or so, just transitioning. It's a huge transition, and you don't even realize it until you're in it. I mean, everything has to be obviously transitioned over, and there's a lot, from phones to bills to legal documents. And then at the same time, you have to learn the rules, right? So there are 32 rules, party rules with the RPOF, with the Republican Party of Florida, and then there's the state constitution, and then there's the Florida state statutes, and then there's the county model constitution, and then there's Robert's Rules of Order. So there's all kinds of different things that you have to learn, which, many of us tried our best to learn pre-election. Obviously, we were practicing, but then it was game time because you're never guaranteed to win, right? So then in January, it was really about trying to find leaders. And at the same time, it was trying to rein some of the folks in that have been used to overreacting, in my opinion, or just reacting to issues happening at the county level that we didn't even know were happening in many cases. Like the single member districts thing showed up about a week into our new positions, and so that absorbed my entire holiday. And then after that, it was the sheriff, and then after that, it was, gosh, I can't even keep up. I don't even remember. But so it was a lot
Fort
of
Myers City Council.
Well, yeah, that was recent.
That was
just last month. But it was also a lot of trying to find your leadership. So the first thing that we did as a board was we had the headquarters volunteers contact every single one of the members multiple times. I don't think that we got a hold of a good portion of them, and we didn't get feedback from most of them, unfortunately. But just trying to find out what are people's passions, what are your talents, who are the connections that you have, what are you looking forward to, what types of things would you like to be involved in? Because I didn't want to. The thing that I learned as a young Republican president was I would create all of these events, and I'd come up with all of these great ideas, but I wouldn't have people behind me because it wasn't their idea.
They didn't buy in.
So I was trying to get the buy-in before we created the platform, and there wasn't much feedback on that. So then it was a matter of trying to find out who my leaders were. And that took a while. So by the February meeting, which in and of itself was a big task. So to host a meeting for hundreds of people it takes a lot of logistics and planning, and so that took up a good amount of our time. And then after the February meeting, it was really just about trying to implement the different initiatives that we wanted to run with, which of course is events and policy, legislation, understanding what's going on locally and at the state level. And there was an election integrity initiative, there's the veterans, there are like 9 different initiatives. And then getting organized with those people so that they understand what we expect of them. And then also, trying to get to know the elected officials. So immediately I wrote handwritten letters to all of our leadership in the area, as well as at the state level. And then I sent Christmas cards to everybody. And then just trying to keep up with what they're doing and how we can work with them so that they can understand what we expect of them and understand what they expect of us, what type of support system they want from us. So it's a lot of phone calls. I tease with both of you, I'm going to have ear cancer in about 3 months because it's calls after calls after calls after calls, and a lot of emails, a lot of emails. And then a lot of learning how to manage the personalities and teaching people what we do and what we don't do. I think that's been the biggest eye-opener for all of us, is that even we didn't realize. I think we're all of us are so we're not politicians, and so we ran for this position and we knew what we were getting ourselves into to some degree. But then once you're actually deep in it and you're trying to figure out what the focus should be, that's when you start to realize that there's quite literally a job description for this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the focus. Find awesome Republicans in your backyard to run for office and build the registration for Republicans in Lee County and foster loyalty by finding really great elected officials, sharing the information of the executive committee, and just being knowledgeable about what's going on and being a contributor in trying to make change. So getting the membership to understand that was also a huge task. And it's a task we're still working on because I think so many people are activists in nature.
Your backyard.
Yeah.
Because that is what so just for the folks out there, the Lee County Republican Party, the official title of it is the Lee County Republican Executive Committee. There's 67 of them
Yes.
that report to the Republican Party of Florida. They're chartered under the Republican Party of Florida, which then lines up with the Republican National Committee. So it's a structured organization.
Yes.
But your backyard, the county parties are supposed to be taking care of their backyard.
That's right.
And
That's
you
exactly
brought that
right.
back.
Yeah,
Everybody
I
wanted
hope
to
so.
get involved in national issues. And that's great. We need to be informed.
Of
And we
course.
need to know how that affects us.
Right.
But are you finding success in getting people to understand it's our backyard we got to take care of?
I feel like yes.
I feel like
it's
too.
it's been a fight. There are people that have told me flat out, this is not how you're supposed to do this. But it is how we're supposed to do this. And while we're used to not doing it this way, this is the way it needs to be done if we want to be successful. We have to stay focused. We have to keep our eye on what we are here for, and that is being able to educate your precinct. You are a precinct committee man and a precinct committee woman, right? So your job is to go out into your voting precinct and do the job that you signed up for. And like you were saying, it's not so much the national issues. And where do the folks at the national level, where do they come from?
They come right from
They
here.
come from here. Where do you
Our
think Byron?
backyards.
Where do you think Byron Donalds came from?
Yeah.
He didn't end up in Washington overnight.
No,
Yeah,
he did not.
exactly.
He started here 15 years ago, and then he went into the state house. And so that's why you have to pay attention to the local races, because eventually that person will end up in Washington.
Absolutely.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
say it all the
quite
time. I say it all the time. And I'm glad that, if you speak to our audience one more time about the vision and the responsibility levels of the Lee County GOP, because I want that to be clear.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I think a lot of times when people show up, even at the headquarters, they're coming in with an expectation of something, and they walk away with like, oh, I didn't know what this was about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like you need to know if you are a part of the local GOP. I just want you to put that out there one more time for us.
Yeah, sure. So if you are part of the executive committee, so that we are not a club. I want to be very clear about that, right? We are not a club. And that's why I hate to call us members. I like to be very clear about we are precinct committee men and precinct committee women, because there's a difference than being just a member, right? So we're not here for luncheons and the fun cultural stuff. We are the business of the party. So our job is to be responsible for educating the Republican voters in our individual precincts. So, you have a voting precinct that you go to, right? There's a location, whether it's a post office or a library or a community center.
Church.
That's where you go to vote. That's your precinct. Those signs that are lined up, those should be put in by your precinct committee men and women, and they should be picked up by your precinct committee men and women, right? You should know who you can vote for based on the information that the precinct committee men and women should be giving you in the months leading up to these different elections. We're the ones that should be out knocking on doors. We're the ones that should be educating people. When somebody new moves in, we used to go with a fresh baked apple pie and say hello. Now you come with a voter registration card too, okay? Because we need to get you registered. So
That's
we're here
right.
to register people. We want to increase voter registration for the Republican Party. We want to also be out on the lookout. Who in your backyard knows the issues and is a powerful speaker and is solutions oriented and is measured and skilled? Who are those people? Let's see if those people would be willing to run for office. Let's get those people up, right? The other thing too is to just educate people on what's going on. Are there any debates or forums or hobnobs or meet and greets? It is our obligation as precinct committee men and women to let our individual precincts know what is happening. Many people complain, you guys will attest to this, that they have no idea who to vote for.
No, all the time.
All
Every
the
election.
time.
And how is that possible when we have a membership of hundreds of people that covers almost every precinct in Lee County, and the vast majority of the people in the area have no idea who to vote for every election? That is a failure on our part. And it is because we are not focused on what our job is.
We're
And our-
focused on other things.
Yes.
On individual agendas.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the individual agendas.
And that
Yes.
kind of goes back to what my next question, a point of view is going to be: how many people come to headquarters, want the opportunity, and their modus operandi is different, that don't align with the vision and the mission
Yeah.
of the Lee County GOP? Because I know a lot of people that want to run for office, whether it's the state house or whether it's the congressional seat, they feel like from a grassroots standpoint of view, I need to start with Lee County GOP. So they kind of come in with a different agenda. Like, how do you really channel those individuals into what the vision of the organization is?
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough because when you start to explain to people what we actually do, a lot of them don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. It's hard work. It's not easy. I mean, listen.
You don't get paid for it.
And then we live in Florida, and the primary is in August. Like, really, y'all?
I've done not many Julys.
You don't make us
I've been out there doing. I'm trying to get out early.
Yeah, exactly.
Be done by noon.
Yeah, but that swamp heat is going to get you anyway. So that is a big challenge, and again, that's why I delineated between a club and the executive committee, because most people come in and they think we are a club, and they think, oh, I just have access to like hundreds of people, and I'll be able to get the word out. No, if you join our organization or have an interest in our organization, the expectation is that you are here to work. Now, I understand not everybody wants to or can, in which case you can volunteer to do different things that are helpful for us. Like when we have the hobnobs and the meet and greets, maybe you can help check people in, or maybe you can just help get the word out. Maybe you're good at social media. So there's different things for people that you can push them into, but for the most part, you do need to be clear about what it is that the executive committee does. And I'm glad you brought up candidates, because the other thing too is, we're the organization that you come to if you have an interest in running for office, and we can guide you with the right resources on how to get started. If you what?
Guidable. If you're coachable.
If you're coachable. Yeah.
Coachable is a big thing for anybody running for office, even if they're already in office.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to be coachable.
Yeah.
You got to be coachable. So I'm gonna bounce it over to Misty, but I got one last question I wanna ask. So the balance, your wife, your mother.
Yeah.
How do you balance? I mean, because obviously for what you've explained to me, I'm like, how do you keep up with it all?
Yeah.
Let alone like balance it.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. It's my own doing, right? Because I'm a full-time working mother, and with two very active children, and then now I'm the GOP chair of a major REC in the state. So it's all about time management, right? It's all about time management, and it was a little tough at first, as you know. Dewayne actually had to call me like 2 months ago, yelling at me at like 8 in the morning. I want you to get out a piece of paper. I want you to put a line down the middle. And he wasn't wrong. Because when I wanted to be accessible to people, I wanted to be. I'm too altruistic, is what I'm realizing, and at the detriment of myself and even my family to some degree. And so I'm pulling that back. So it's all about time management, giving myself days that I can do the REC stuff, because the REC stuff is volunteer. It's all volunteer, and that's something that people don't realize. Your county chair, which is like almost a full-time job, is all volunteer. So this particular position is only going to get so much of my time. It can only get so much of my time. Even if I wasn't a working mother, it should not take every minute of my life. So it's all about, I have 3 phones. I have a personal phone,
That
I have
drives
a work
me
phone,
crazy, by the way.
and I have an REC phone. And I just turn the REC phone off. On Fridays and Sundays, I just turn it off, and then like Mondays and Wednesdays during the day, I'm fully invested in my job, and then I'll deal with REC in the evening or in the morning, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will check REC stuff early in the morning, during my lunch hour, and late at night. So it's a lot of work. It's probably 60 to 80 hours a week is what I'm doing right now, but it's getting a little bit better because I finally have my leadership in place, and my board is really getting comfortable with what their positions are and being able to take on more and take that off of me. And so, it's about putting the phones away and time management and priorities too, because at the beginning I was just trying to please everybody and give myself to everybody.
Never please everybody.
Remember George Washington said, you disprove your emotions.
Yeah.
So a little counsel before I give it over to Misty for some hard questions, political questions.
Yeah,
from Mercedes.
let's go.
So according to Mercedes, if you're out there and you're looking for a position, if it comes with a phone, run.
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna have ear cancer.
I can never get the right phone. It's like
I know poor Missy is like, which phone is this?
I don't know. I'm asking because she has a very important job, actually, that we're not talking about today. But she has a very important job where she can't necessarily talk about certain things.
Yeah, no.
So like you're trying to figure out, oh my God, which one of these? I have it all labeled, but then whatever. It's another thing.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I applaud you because. They always say if you want something done, if you want something done right, you probably want to ask a busy person.
Yeah.
Because you figured it out. You figured it out quick, actually.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a workaholic, and I don't do anything pardon my language, half-assed.
You
It's
don't.
not in my nature. So that's why you'll get the 2 a.m. email from me. You'll get the 4 a.m. email. Like I will try to get it done. And so I think you've got to have somebody like that can.
And I try
handle
to
that.
tell you when the people compliment you. I hope I do, because people
Yeah,
do
thank you.
come to me at least and say, "Hey, she was a rock star at that meeting." It was, you had a difficult meeting this past
Yeah.
meeting, and it was a challenging meeting. And you're the you officiate the meeting. That's your job as chairman, and there's rules and policies in place that you have to allow to happen. And sometimes that gets controversial a little bit. So you that everybody said you were a rock star. Everybody
I hope
told me,
so.
said you did great.
Yeah.
You were professional and unbiased and all of the above.
I tried to be.
Yeah.
I tried to be.
Yeah, so good for you on that. Now, you mentioned hot topic. Like, I never would have thought this would have been that hot of a topic.
Who's he now?
You mentioned single member districts. What the heck is happening? Can I just say this? I didn't care about this issue at all. If everything stayed the same, I would have been just fine and dandy, right? I'd have been just fine and dandy.
Sure. Same.
I have good relationships with my county commissioners. I have two, but technically one, but I have two over Cape Coral. Both of my commissioners I can go to. I can get resolution. I can find out what's going on, and they will go the extra mile for me. I have it good. I have it good, but I got to tell you, I ran my first countywide campaign. Now you.
Wow.
So yes, presidential campaigns are countywide, but you're running a piece of it, not the whole thing, right? When you're on a national campaign, when you're on a statewide campaign, you're running a piece of it, generally. So this first countywide race is bigger than a congressional seat in Lee County.
Wow.
Not in every county, but in Lee County. So I was representing some people out of East Lee County. And I've never seen, they don't have that relationship.
Yeah.
They don't have somebody to go to.
They don't. I was just out in Lehigh yesterday talking with MCIS, and they manage the water flow and all
Which
the,
is so important.
yes, and like all the flooding, and Lehigh is just so poorly planned, and there's just no interest in trying to fix that area. I mean, I shouldn't say no. There needs to be more interest. In Lehigh Acres. So you want to know why people are fighting for single-member districts? Because people aren't being represented. That's why.
Well, because 40% of the time the district votes for one person and Cape Coral votes for another one. And Cape Coral wins.
Yes, because that's where everybody's at.
That's where everybody's at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So it was harder to run a countywide race than a congressional race,
Yeah, I believe it.
and much more. So, and there is a machine here in place. And if you're not in the machine, if you're not part of the machine, you just started with a straight uphill climb, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And people know that. Everybody knows that. And I'm not bashing the machine. I mean, not bashing them. I'm just saying, if you're not part of it, sometimes you are, sometimes you're not.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And you know what? Compete then, right?
Yeah, I've actually, I'm a conservative. I believe in limited government. I don't want to see extra layers of government here. I don't want to see that. But I do believe when 40% of the time the district is voting for this person and Cape Coral's voting for somebody else, that's not fair. It's not really a representation of the people in the district. That's not Cape Coral.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually falling that way lately.
Yeah.
If they're not going to expand the government, which
Right
now the bill doesn't.
Well, right now it doesn't.
Yeah, and we would vote on it anyway. Like, it's not a bill to make single member districts, right?
Right. So so you're talking about the bill that's in the legislature right now? Yeah. So the bill that's in the legislature right now is not a single member districts bill. It is a referendum for single member districts to be on the 2026 ballot. So that's the delineation that we need to make for most people, because everyone's like, oh, it's single member districts. They're saying it's single member districts because the likelihood that the community would vote in favor of this referendum, according to the people that don't want it to happen, is extremely high. So
it passes everywhere it goes.
yes, right, because it's appealing, right? Why wouldn't you want to be able to run a smaller race and have a more concentrated representative from your particular area? Why wouldn't you? And it's an interesting situation, because if you are, the libertarian in me says, why wouldn't we want single member districts? Of course I want to be able to know my commissioner. And I want to know that my commissioner lives in my neighborhood and understands what's happening at the park up the street or the roads
Makes sense.
around the corner. But then I understand the argument that you lose 80% of your voice, right? Because if you are only voting for 1 versus 5, then you don't get access to the other 4. So it's a tough situation. I think we're the executive committee, and again, no matter what I think about the issue, I'm a spokesman for the organization, and the organization as a whole is not in favor of the referendum. So the referendum is very controversial because there are 3 different ways that we can, as residents of Lee County, decide if we want to do single-member districts. And that is something that the state legislators have not afforded us. They have overridden us and taken it upon themselves up in Tallahassee to make the determination on whether or not we should get to vote, as opposed to us doing petitions or working with the county commissioners to make the changes. So it's very controversial because the state legislators, many feel, have overstepped. And, there is something to say about home rule and having a county charter. It's not something that everyone in the state of Florida has, and you want to have some county control. And if you can keep that control at the county level, why not? But at the same time, do you want smaller districts that don't cost you millions of dollars to run and maybe represent you better? Sure. So it's tough.
So it's interesting you say that because I hear that whole you'll lose 80% of your vote and you won't have representation. If you talk to people in East Lee County, they have 0% vote.
That is exactly what I was hearing yesterday.
And having said that, I don't know if I have a situation in this, that requires a state person. I'll call my state rep or I'll call my state senator, but I can also call Tiffany Esposito. I can also call Adam Botana, and they can help me out with things, and they do. And then they go up there and they work together for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we have a storm here, and they're putting a bill together to send help our way, finances and different things, the rest of the state goes, oh no, we don't want to help you. We're from East Coast. We don't want to help the West Coast. They work together and they make it happen. So I don't understand the expectation that they won't work together to make Lee County a better place. I think if you elect the right people, they will.
Well, and how many other races are set up in a single member district fashion?
So your state reps and state senators are.
Right.
Your U.S. congressman is.
Yes.
Your U.S. senator is at large.
It's at large.
Right.
So school board was always single member district, but they added the 2 at large about 10 years ago?
I think
8 or
so.
10 years ago?
Yeah.
And then if you look at like Fort Myers City Council, they're separate wards. But if you look at Cape Coral, they're at large. City Council, they are at large.
That's right.
So it's kind of when you start drilling down smaller, it's a plethora of things. And I look at like campaigning, we're all worried about special interests getting involved, and if it's going to cost $1 million to run a countywide race, then you're definitely having to have a lot of special interest help, obviously, for that. But it doesn't matter. Single member districts, it's just going to be cheaper for the special interest to get involved, and they're still going to have a hand up. They are. Me being on the grassroots, the campaign side of things, they're still going to have a hand up. But if you look at like the Yvette Benner-Roach, the Marco Island Naples proper race, she went against, I'll call it a special interest. Guy had $1 million pretty much to put in for a little. That's a little race. That's a small race. That's a race that doesn't cost $1 million. It might cost $100,000. She raised maybe 1/5 of what he raised or 1/4 of what he raised. But she'd been working in her community for over a decade. She'd been all over the state getting Hispanics out to vote, getting them registered to vote, understanding that their values are conservative values. She had been all over her county, making sure that she was involved in nonprofits. She started Moms for Liberty.
Right.
She was known, and she beat the special interest.
Yeah.
So single-member districts, I don't think it's going to be easier to win a race. I think your grassroots candidate will then have a chance to win a race, but they can't just show up and run.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to just show up and run because then it's a case of who has the most money to buy that name recognition.
Right.
Is what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. So from a political analytics standpoint of view, if I was a constituent, not a member of the REC, would this favor me or would this disfavor me? Or do you think it's not a major concern? Because if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that it will be voted up. because more people that would be voting, they would be in favor of the single member
because
district.
it's appealing. It's appealing to feel like you have a smaller campaign to run. None of us want the special interests, like you were saying. Nobody wants to vote for people who have to run these multi-million-dollar campaigns because you know what that means. So if you can support an idea that allows for people to only have to raise couple hundred grand, if that,
That's a lot even.
and then they are literally from your backyard, that is very appealing. But again, and I know that you feel a little different in terms of the 80%. Yes, you can still access those other people if you can be respectful and keep the door open for yourself. But you can still access those people for sure. But it's kind of nice to be able to vote for 4 other people because if you break it down into single member districts, as the chairman of the Republican Party, it may compromise some of our seats. We are a very red county, so we have the voting power as Republicans. If we break it down into individual little districts, then you become more vulnerable to losing a Republican seat to an area that may actually be more Democrat. But because we get the county-wide voting, the county will always go red. If you break it down, to some wards in different parts of Fort Myers and different parts of the county, then that'll probably go blue, and that's not what we want. We don't want
we don't want that. No, I know they have ran the numbers on that. We should pull those numbers. They say that's not possible, at least at this time. That every area is a plus. I think the lowest is a plus 18 to a plus 36.
In a single member district format. I'd be curious to see that.
Let's see if we can pull those numbers.
Yeah, let's see that.
So they're saying, I haven't researched that myself, so let's not give it credit before credit is due. So having said that, what do you think about, is it 5 or 6 lawsuits against the county commission on these development projects that are changing the county plan and the land use rights?
Wow, how do I not know about this?
Oh yeah, so you know what? We'll have a special guest on for that.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'm gonna be tuning into that.
So it's.
I know there's some mess going on.
It's basically somebody wants to develop. Developers have a lot of influence.
Extremely.
Obviously, somebody wants to change the. What is it called? Somebody wants to change the density.
Yeah.
But there's no infrastructure plan in place. I mean, did you sit in traffic to get here?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Always.
So, but it's not.
I live in Cape Coral. It's nothing but traffic from Cape Coral to here.
I moved here 15 years ago. What a difference.
Yeah. Listen, we're trying to get out of South Cape.
Oh.
I need to get to North Cape as fast as I can at this point.
Maybe have a little
South
land,
Cape
see some stars. I don't know, but
something. We're looking at Alva. That's how much we're like, we got to get out of
Alva's
here.
beautiful.
It's just out of control.
They're trying to destroy Alva. So,
yes, I know.
Yeah. So,
I know.
and that's
which
the
is
deal.
why people want single member districts. Like, hey, if you cared about every corner of the county, you wouldn't be having this fight, right?
Well,
but anyway.
so that's a good point you just made, actually. So you've got these lawsuits, and I don't know the details of them, but you got lawsuits from Estero to Sanibel Captiva to Alva to Olga to Buckingham. Not Olga, but Buckingham. There's 5 or 6 lawsuits going on because they want to increase the density, change the land use, change the county plan that was put in place.
Why, so we could have like 100 more high-rises and apartment complexes?
The governor said yesterday at his press conference, he said, we really don't, you can't stop people from coming.
No, we can't.
But we're not like inviting anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not what his words were, but he basically said that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely major changes to what has been the landscape for. We have our beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel, right? That was the branding of the Visitor and Convention Bureau, and then and then you have your islands, they're great tourist attractions, and you have your downtown Fort Myers, which is a great tourist attraction, but you also have your rural area, and then you kind of have your rural, your farmland, your horse country, North Cape Coral, out East Lee
Buckingham,
County, that kind of area, people where they can park their planes in a hangar at their house, that type of thing.
I was just there yesterday.
Yeah, it's a cool place, right?
It's so interesting. Who knew?
Yeah, it's the garages, they have plane hangars. So,
really? Now, where's this at?
Out in
Buckingham.
in the Buckingham area. It's near Harney's. Is it Harney's Point? Is it Harney? It's that giant preserve. It's like one of the water reservoirs. That's what we were touring at the time, which is why I was intrigued by the neighborhood.
Wow. Yeah, it's clearly we know it's a lot going on in Lee County. Misty, is there any other updates or topics? I mean, because there's so much. I mean,
I
let me.
know.
If
Oh
I
my
had a
gosh.
question, the big three in Lee County, and I know when I say
Yeah,
the
that's a
big
good question. What are the big three? What are the big? Well, single member district will be number one.
number one.
People are losing their minds. Over
Yeah,
that.
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
the school board was ramping up there for a little while, and seemed like they kind of, went to sleep a
Well,
little
we
bit.
got a majority. We got 6 out of 7 seats.
Right.
So we're
see-
getting a little complacent.
Well, and that's what I was just about to say. That's what frustrates me about our base is we win and then we go back to sleep, and the left never rests.
It's
They
so
never
We
rest.
talked about that.
And and you just assume that because you've got an all red school board or an all red county commission that everything's all fine and dandy, and you can just go back to watching TV and whatever else you're doing. But that's never the right move.
It's never,
The right move.
That's
Yeah.
not the right move. Yeah. I remember winning with U.S. Senator Katie Britt, and the night that we won, we was like, okay, time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All 17 months is what we worked for to go back to work.
Yep. Yep. That's it.
Yeah, it's like you on this campaign trail for 17 months just to go to work.
Yeah.
Now you got to turn up and you got to go. It's kind of like my President Trump. The day after inauguration, he was like, "Let's go.
Yeah, that's right.
This is what we signed up to do here."
Even
Yeah.
the day after he won, he was already meeting with world leaders
right.
and making deals and
Like
putting the stop
he
on
does
bricks.
Not stop. He does not play, does he?
Yeah, no, I hear he gets like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
Some
believe-
people are like that. People at that level, they're just born that way.
Their
right?
brain
They're
doesn't
just
stop.
born
That's
that
me.
way.
That's
yeah.
me.
Doesn't
Yeah, that's
stop.
totally you. Yeah,
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, he's
I
up
get
at like 4 in the morning. I'm
2:45.
No, I need my sleep.
Yeah, 2:45.
I need
Yeah.
my sleep. I got to
like,
rejuvenate.
me too.
Yeah,
I'll be up till 2:45.
Yeah, I will
But I'm
too.
not getting up at 2:45.
Yeah, 2:45. Yeah, my wife started watching this series the other night, and it's the first time in almost 30 years I ever seen my wife stay up past like 2 in the morning.
Wow.
So I was
what's
like,
the series?
that's
That's
what
like
I
me
want to
with
know.
Game of Thrones. I'm like whole season 1 in one day. Like,
I mean, like literally, like I'm like, okay, you didn't come to bed, okay, and so I get up and I leave the house and I come back and you watching the same series, and I'm like, Karen, what are you doing?
yeah.
Like you got to do something, like.
right. Nah, let her watch her series.
Yeah. Now
Oh.
I'm not. I'm gonna let you finish, and I don't want to put you on the blast.
Yeah.
Don't kick me under the table. So last Saturday I was over at Collier County.
Yes. Lincoln Reagan Trump dinner.
Yeah. Let me tell you, man. Hey, they rolled it out.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
good,
it was
right?
like red carpet style.
It was really
I
nice.
snuck in the VIP and grabbed, our new our new candidate for gubernatorial race. I was able to snatch him behind the back and be like, "Hey, it's me, man. Like, what you doing?" Yeah.
You sneaking into VIP.
Hey, let me tell you, it was hard.
You have to be slick.
Big, black, loud guy, 6'1" and a quarter, 265 pounds. Trying to sneak in.
Yeah.
So, but I put my glasses on, so I looked important.
Okay.
And so they was like, "Oh, you must
about
be
the
like
glasses.
one
You
of
had
our
on a
reps."
nice
And I
suit.
was
I
like,
saw
"Oh."
pictures. You had on a nice suit.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm one of the reps."
You look
And she's like,
sharp.
"Oh, you one of the reps? I thought you were one of the reps."
Yeah.
Yeah, repping McDonald's tonight.
But yeah, so we're planning our Lincoln Reagan Trump in February.
Okay.
And Missy and I actually just had a conversation about this yesterday on whether we want it to be early February or late February. So trying to get the deposit down on that today. That's one of the things that I want to do when I get out of here. And then we've also got the Constitution Day Gala, which is going to be the 18th, because I think the 18th, or is it the 19th, which is that Friday? I think we're going
Okay.
to go with that
Of what
Friday.
month?
September. So
September.
Constitution Day is
Constitution,
September
September.
17th.
Yeah, September 17th.
Yes,
Okay.
and so since that's like a Wednesday, I don't think we want a Wednesday evening.
Ooh,
so
let me tell you, all the Baptist churches in Southwest Florida be putting you out.
I can imagine.
Bible
I can imagine. So looking to do a Friday night for that. And then, we have a great supporter in Bill Dobman, who owns My Shower Door. And so he is happy to sponsor the Veterans Day fundraiser.
Every November.
Yes, by allowing us to host it at Esplanade in the clubhouse there where he lives. And that's going to be in November. So we've got a whole slew of, we've got 3 pretty big events: the
big
Veterans
events.
Day, the Constitution Day, and the Lincoln Reagan Trump. And then, of course, like both of you know, we've been trying to work on the wine dinners. So for a very high dollar ticket, you
Missed
can have
your
a
wine
private
lady.
wine dinner with someone anywhere from Speaker Johnson to Mike Lee. It just depends on who we can get to commit. And we'll do those in private homes. So I'm building my list of sponsors who want to host these events in their private homes. And then we'll have Gloria Jordan, who's a very well-known chef in the area, cater for those particular dinners. And those will probably run about $2,000 to $3,000 per ticket. Again, limited access, only about a dozen of you in the room with somebody like a Speaker Johnson or like a Mike Lee.
I like that.
Maybe even a Rand or Ron Paul. We'll see.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool. You know,
We'll
I was
see.
a Ron Paul girl.
Yeah, you were telling me that. So how'd you leave the bright side and end up on the dark side of non-Ron Paulism?
Well, I'm
just kidding.
I'm not
I'm just
non-Ron
kidding.
Paul. It's just
I
he
know,
didn't even
I
get
know.
on our ballot. in
Yeah, I know he
Florida.
didn't.
No, that really
Yeah,
stunk.
yeah,
So I couldn't
yeah.
vote for him.
Let me ask you a question. Southwest Florida, have Lee County, Charlotte, and Collier ever tried to come together for a big event? Or you guys kind of
We
like,
talked about that.
because
Missy
it
was
seemed like to
talking
me
about
like you can have some like major that could be like hosted out of like Hertz Arena or something
Right.
if all three counties came together. I mean, have you guys ever thought about that ever happened?
So Missy brought that up to me last week, and that would actually be a really great idea. So I have a vision for our 250th anniversary, which is
That's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be next year, 4th of
Wow.
July, 250 years.
Next
Let's
year,
go.
Dewayne
America.
Moore, the
Let's go.
keynote speaker. No, I'm just kidding.
So I was thinking at first, I wanted to have more of like a family event because, one of the things that I get a lot is people, the activists or just regular folk don't want to pay $400 for a ticket.
Sure.
And they want to be able to access some of these speakers. And so I was thinking, well, what if we did something more around $60 to $80 or $90 and made it during the day and did a sort of a luncheon or just like a buffet of hors d'oeuvres and made it more family oriented where you could bring your young kids and then we could talk about what I love about Vivek Ramaswamy is his speeches about the spirit of 1776 and how we're at that moment now and how we need to capture it and decide which way we want to go. Do we want to keep going the way we've been going, or do we want to have the 1776 moment where we have a revolution, a peaceful revolution where we change the direction of where we've been going to where we should be going? And so that might be a really good idea, is to get all of the counties together for some big 250th anniversary party around 4th of July of 2026.
I would love to be a part of that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And Hertz Arena, that's a good idea. I actually just got in contact with the people that host events at FGCU, which is right next door to Hertz Arena, because I went to an event there in the basketball court. They turned it into this giant, like, wonderful.
In Hertz Arena or Alico?
Sorry, I guess it's now
Yeah.
Hertz Arena, but at FGCU. So I apologize. At the FGCU basketball, yeah. Is that what they've changed that to Alico?
It was Alico.
Well, Hertz Arena was Alico, but I'm talking about FGCU on the campus. Their basketball stadium, their basketball arena, they've turned that into a venue, and they brought in like hundreds of people.
Nice.
And I went to an event there, and it was really neat. I thought it was kind of a neat venue. So anyway, got in touch with them. But Hertz, that's big. But if we could do it with several counties, that would be something worth entertaining.
I think it
Check
would be
out.
too.
Yeah. it'd be
Miss,
great.
you got anything else for Mercedes?
Man, we could sit here and talk all day, but she's
Seriously.
got to pick up her kids, and it's almost 2:30. And I listen. I applaud the work you're doing.
Thank you.
I forgot how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
And you've powered through it, girl.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
powered through it.
Just
So
keep going.
Congratulations.
Focus on the people that, gave me the mandate, right?
Yeah, they gave you
Yeah,
a mandate.
Didn't win by one or two or even a couple dozen.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
so obviously people want to move on.
People support you, and they want
Thank you.
They want it to be a civil place to go. And
Yes.
and you're doing that already.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm
First
trying.
2 meetings have been out of this ballpark.
That's
Yeah.
ball about Grand Slam.
Best meetings in 4 years. I told you.
Yeah.
good stuff.
Well,
That's good stuff.
we're getting there. We're trying to rein it in a little bit. but
Rein it in a little bit.
Trying.
Yeah. So before we probably got about a good 5 minutes before we wrap up. So I got 2 challenges for you. Okay. Number one, I want you to speak to leadership. Speak to leadership and just help leadership understand what it is to truly be a leader. Because that's what you're doing now. You're leading and you're making a powerful impact, but you started with investing first, and you give yourself and made a large sacrifice. So speak to our leaders.
Yeah, sure. Give them advice,
Yes,
or
yes.
yeah,
That's what
sure.
you're here for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think it's really just about caring about what you're doing and giving it everything. Right? Don't ever give something half of your energy.
That's right.
Because people can see when you really care about things.
Yeah.
Only chase things you actually care about. Don't come to the REC because you want something. Come to the REC because you care about the direction of the country, because you want to actually make change. If there's anything that you want from it, it's the change that you're hoping to make yourself. I would say, being patient with each other, respecting each other, understanding that, especially in the executive committee and here in Lee County, we're all on this, all of us Republicans, we're all on the same page.
All on the same
And you know what?
page.
No one is you.
That's
So
right.
you're never going to find the perfect candidate. When I hear people criticize Byron Donalds as being a rhino, I don't
Wow.
know if they're
I know.
stupid or just hateful or
They
both.
gotta be stupid.
They didn't agree with him on one thing.
Or even if
That's
he
what
didn't agree
happened.
with him on 3 or 4.
Right.
There's hundreds
Right.
of issues that he has either voted on or has expressed his opinions on. So do we agree 80 to 90% of the time? I say 90% of the time because that's still a lot. But a lot of people say 80 because that's what Reagan would say. So
Right.
focusing on that 80% is what matters. And then, of course, respectful collaboration. That has always been my thing. Just because I'm taking a picture with someone or just because I have a good relationship with someone, politics makes for strange bedfellows.
Sure
So
does.
if we know that, then why are we mad if you see somebody talking to someone? Never assume that you know why. That's what I learned working in the office of a politician is what you hear as an activist on the outside and what you surmise is almost always not what's actually happening.
Absolutely.
So just caring about what you're doing, not going into it expecting something, wanting to give for yourself, and then being respectful with each other and just focusing on the fact that we are all we're in the same ship, guys.
That's right.
We're in the same ship. So help me row.
No, absolutely. So second challenge, this is going to be a good one, okay?
Okay.
If you can sing the first hymn word of American Grace. No, I'm just kidding.
American Grace. I know.
I'm just-
can you see
no,
the
you're
terrible.
anthem?
I'm just messing
I know
with you.
from the halls of Montezuma
Oh,
to
yeah.
the shores of Tripoli.
No, I like that.
Wait,
I
no,
like
we
that.
could
You're
get the
not
hot
afraid.
flashes to come sing that.
Hoorah.
They do it at the end of every.
Nah,
Oh yeah, the hot flashes. I forgot about them.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
No,
haven't
I
seen them in a
was just kidding with you. But second challenge, in a male-dominant society, there's a young girl out there dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to speak to the young girl now because there are young women who are aspiring to be in leadership, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're afraid to really step outside the box of their comfort zone, not understanding that sometimes to connect the dots, you got to take a risk reward,
Yeah.
which is getting outside the box. So you
100%.
got to sometimes make what's hard easy and what's uncomfortable comfortable. So I want you to speak to the young lady that's out there aspiring to be a leader one day.
Yeah, sure. Listen, first of all, you're American, so there is almost no limit, right? Like, I mean, it's limitless, the opportunities. But it's really about understanding that if you have a vision and you have a mission, nobody can stand in your way. And even if people stand in your way, if you keep going and going and going, you're going to get there. I remember, I remember having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine, and she was a young black girl, and she was asking me, she's like, but don't you feel like sometimes you go places and you've got curly hair and you've got darker skin? I'm telling you, I went to college in rural Georgia, okay, in the middle of the cotton fields, and I found me a husband, okay? So when people say those things, I personally, maybe you did slam the door in my face because I have curly brown hair, or maybe you didn't hire me because I'm a woman. I didn't notice. I didn't care. I was so busy just like focused on what I was trying to accomplish that I never allowed anyone to make me feel like I was inferior. It's just all about understanding your worth. It's all about understanding your worth, whether it's at a job or in a relationship.
That's right.
Just understanding what your worth is, and to hell with everybody else.
That's it. South
I don't even pay
Georgia,
attention.
Kentucky.
there's
You
some
guys
country
ever ate
girls.
cornbread?
That's right.
Y'all from the South.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love me some cornbread.
Love some
Listen,
cornbread.
What I'm a
jalapeno cheddar
connoisseur of is
cornbread.
gravy.
It's gravy.
Ooh, white gravy, pepper gravy. Get it, girl. Okay.
Well, Mercedes, it was our absolute
Yeah, this
humble
was
pleasure to
fun.
have you in the studio with us today. Missy, you have anything else you want to say?
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
You're
thank
our
you.
first guest.
Yeah,
I
let's
know,
go.
right? Yeah. So as we always close, as we always say, we're out of time, but we never out of message. We'll see you the next time.
All
That's
right.
right. Amen.